Welcome to another episode of Oldsmob 455. Going to do a little work on the Javelin today. I'm going to be installing a tachometer. This tach is pretty sweet. I got this off the car about 10 or 15 years ago. It's been sitting in a box since. I found out that a couple of the LEDs are burned out, and I think it was from the Knight Rider era. I'm actually going to install this tach here. The only thing this tach is good for is the trash. I got this here auto gauge monster tach I'm going to install, and I opted for the 8,000 RPM one because the valve float is just under 7,000 RPM on the current setup I have. Tachometer makes this thing, and it's their cheaper line. It comes with a big shift light, which I wanted. I actually have a different auto gauge tach in my Oldsmobile, and it has a small shift light on the face of the tach, and it's hard to see when you're in the heat of the race. Here's what they gave me, the tachometer. You can see there's a pigtail there for that shift light. Simple installation. You have your switch power, ground, your coiled wire, and your light wire. The shift light, the clamp, looks like a cover for the shift light, and a couple of wood screws which will not be used in my installation. My original plan was to put the tach up here at the top of the windshield. I actually went as far as to get an extra trim piece I could drill and not have to worry about it, but it really obstructs my view, so I think I'm going to go the low road and put her down here somewhere, kind of pointed at me. I'll probably have to put a plug or something where this dummy gauge is, so I can get the tach just how I want it. So I turned a spacer on the lathe to keep the fabric down, and so I can mount the tach over that. The hole in the center is so the wires can go through it. The tach will have to be stepped out too so it doesn't hit the glass. It'll probably look something like this when it's done. Here's what I came up with for a pedestal for the tach mount. It's been drilled through, and then drilled out and squared with an end mill, and then drilled through and tapped. This piece is going to take the place of these pieces, and the tach will basically mount on here like this. This piece can be turned and the tach can be angled. Not sure how this is going to work out yet, but I'm going to give it a go. I would consider tapping the top of it, mounting this piece on there like that, but there are just so many pieces and I don't think it'd be very rigid. So I decided just to go with the pedestal. Inside I just took a bolt, rounded the edges, and cut a slit in it so it's like a screw. If it works out and I have any issues with this piece turning on the dash, I'll drill another hole through here and tap it, so it'll be locked into one position once I find out where I like it. On a side note, did you ever try drilling a hole through the center of a piece of pipe? Good luck without a fixture. This was done with a crotch center on a lathe. You can see how the holes are perfectly aligned and in the center. Here's a 1/4 inch transfer punch, so I can mark my center. Here's the tachometer mounted in the car. It does clear the other gauges, I can still read them. Clears the windshield. That was pretty much what prompted this whole pedestal mount deal. I have it pointed at me so I can easily see it, and it's looking pretty cool. Tachometers like this in a street car are a little bit gimmicky, but I always wanted one, and there it is. Here it is wired in. You can see the illumination of all these gauges. Works along with the dash lights. Looks like you set the shift point with this deal here. That needle makes a big shadow on one side of the gauge. Let it warm up here for a minute. A little update for anyone following the build. The front end of the car is bushed now. Both the coil springs have been replaced, and it's sitting up about 2 inches higher. There's about 3.5 inches now of clearance to that header. The header clearance is still on the low side, so we're probably going to build a skid plate for the bottom of this car. And these headers, in all fairness, were not intended to be street headers.